Good evening. Holly Herndon, 401 East Mansion Street, Marshall, Michigan, historic Marshall, Michigan. I hope someday I can still keep saying that. I'm also known as Holly and Holly, so I know a lot of people in here from that, so I think a lot of you know how much I love Marshall. Came here 20-some years ago, my husband and I looked at historic homes, and there's a lot of across the country, but nothing was like Marshall. Marshall was so special, as we're known as, in the landmark district, having more historic homes per capita than anything in the nation. That's pretty special. So I decided to come here. It wasn't something like if we'd heard that, gee, let's go to Marshall, there's going to be a big, huge factory. That wouldn't have sparked my interest to come here. Not that I haven't been in towns by big factories, but nothing that might harm the way of life that I've come to know and love. So my take, a lot of this is sort of from a preservation point. I was involved years ago. I wasn't here for the Frank Center. That they tried to, get rid of the Frank Center, Oakland Hospital. Other preservationists stood up and fought for that, and I'm grateful for that because it's a wonderful, wonderful place, as Jacob knows. It is. It's wonderful to go to. I love it. I'm very close by. Yeah, I've been there many times, and it's a wonderful place, and I'm glad that they stood up and saved that. I stood up for trying to save houses around Oak Lawn years ago when the zoning then was going to try to take over some homes, and so I know what this is like. It's not always pleasant. It's hard, for on both sides. It's just, but you got to stand up for what you believe in. I do believe in that. So I kind of want to talk from a preservation point and what Marshall kind of means to me. I also knew a gal in Lansing that was Michigan Preservation Network, and she and I were talking this over, and these are kind of some of our thoughts on what I would like to say. I'm aware of previous Marshall preservation issues and the leadership's preservation ethics. Michigan Historic Preservation Network fought along with a group of residents and the Marshall Historical Society to stop the demolition of several historic homes when Oakland Hospital wanted to expand into the neighborhood. The proposed megasite will scour Marshall's landscape, destroy farmland, and level historic farmsteads and barns. I'm including a portion of the National Landmark Historic District nomination below. Note that it refers to Marshall's exceptionally high degree of historic integrity. Marshall's leadership needs to step back and consider its precious historic rural treasures before they support another big business. Part of that excerpt was that the proposed National Historic Landmark District encompasses a large portion of the historic building stock of Marshall. Most properties, both individually and in a group, retain an exceptionally high degree of integrity. That's special. Not every state or historic place can say that. Now, this is more of a heartfelt. We preserve buildings, structures, and landscapes because they connect us to our past. The design, the spaces, the decoration inside and out tell us so much more about culture, the culture that created it. When we look at historic buildings in Marshall, we should ask ourselves why these buildings are important to us. It is not enough to appreciate their physical beauty. We must also understand their place in history and what they mean to the residents of the community. Each one tells a story of the people who lived there before us. When we drive through the community, we know who built that farmstead and the families who have lived there over the years. The barns, the farmhouses, and outbuildings are an important part of the historic building stock of Marshall, and they all represent memories of Marshall's collective past. Without these buildings, Marshall would have little physical representation of their agricultural history. Preservation is always local. The preservation movement was founded on a grassroots level by impassioned citizens like those in Marshall who wanted to preserve their community heritage for future generations. From this foundation, it has developed into a broad and sometimes complex field involving state, federal, and international organizations. But the inspiration and real work has always come from the grassroots level. It is critical that the residents be heard. I strongly request that the Marshall leadership consider their decision to sell the rural sites to create a megasite that will severely diminish the exceptionally high historic integrity of Marshall. Thank you guys so much.